Hi, have you been in a situation where you're going to get into a meeting with your boss or your boss's boss and you're like, what should I talk to them about today? So, in this video, I'm going to share with you 5 topic areas that are super important in a business one on one. A one on one in a business setting where you're talking with your boss or with your boss's boss or any senior leader. There are 5 areas where you can proactively talk about them and make sure that you're getting alignment and you're negotiating your path to success. So, all of these areas and most of this video is inspired by chapter 4 of this book, The First 90 Days. And so I'm going to use a lot of that. So, credit to this book. But remember, every time you talk to a senior leader, you are getting assessed how you're doing in terms of project work, in terms of whether you're doing well. And it's also a wonderful opportunity where you can negotiate, align, and ask for things. So, what are the 5 areas? Number one, project situation alignment. You want to make sure that you understand the project that you are given or a new challenge that you're working on, and the way you see that situation of that project or the challenges of that project is the same as what your leader sees it at. If you think about various types of project, there's the STARS framework that you can use, where certain projects could be like you're trying to kick it off the ground and it's a startup-y kind of project. So it's the S of the STARS, startup, right? Where you're focused on initial funding. There could be certain projects that are in trouble and you need to turn them around and get them back. And some of that requires authorities where you need authority in decision making. So that could be a turnaround project. Certain projects could be an acceleration in growth where you need certain more funding to accelerate your growth. Certain projects could be realignment where you have a need for consistently changing what the organization does and align them to doing something totally different over time. And finally, a project could fall into being sustenance, where you have a project that's generating lots of money, it's a cash cow, but you want to make sure that there's no complacency in the team, so you set up stretch goals. So how you identify what the challenge is and what is the situation you are in, and make sure that your leader sees it the same way. Like, does the leader categorize a project as a turnaround where you had categorized it as, let's say, accelerated growth? Then that's a problem. So this could be one such area where you could get alignment with your senior leaders saying, hey, let's discuss what is the lens with which I see this project, what is my assessment, and check with the senior leader what is their assessment. And when that assessment is there, then you can figure out, okay, what are the issues of that project for that challenge and what are the solutions, right? So that could be a great way to get alignment and make sure that you learn. You might see things very differently than your leader. At that time, you have to have an action item to reset expectations or educate your boss, or so many things can come out as you discuss how you see it, learn how they see it, and once that's aligned, then you can discuss about ideas of common issues and solutions. But you can also use this as an opportunity to find out your top 3. Like, a project could be one of those projects in 10 project lists that you're working on. So then you could talk about, like, hey, what are my top 3 that you think has the biggest impact on the business? So the leader, this senior leader, understands way much more than what your boss may know directly, or your boss's boss, right? So understand, like, what is the area of biggest impact, and validating that could be an important way. You talk about how you see that project being important and check how the leader describes that project, right? And then check, what do you have? What do you have for this project to work on? Do you have certain people? Do you have decision making authority? Like, what is it that you have to execute on this project? So this is important area, like project discussion, like, hey, what is the situation of this project? Align on what challenges, issues, risks, mitigation that you see, and what do you have to work on this project? So that's the first of the 5. What's the second? Goals, expectations, alignment. So once you identified these are your top 3 projects, this project falls under this situations in the STARS framework we discussed, then it's about setting goals. Setting goals. Setting goals that are realistic. So this requires some work. Second set of meeting, as I said, you could be a meeting around discussing expectations or like goals. What are the goals of this project? What does success look like? Ask that question to your senior leader. Have you ever asked your senior leader, what does success look like to you? How would they measure success? When would they measure success? What are the milestones that they think we need to hit? And what are the milestones you think you can realistically hit? If there's a big discrepancy between what their expectation is and what your expectation is, this is a fantastic opportunity to have a one-on-one focus just on goals. So get alignment. Get alignment on what are the metrics, when is something considered success, and if you get success, what's next? Are you going to be set up to own that area of work that you picked up, and would you continue to do more in that area? Is your boss getting alignment with their boss about these goals that you have for the project? Like, meaning, let's say your boss has an expectation that you will hit certain number by certain time. Is your boss's boss see the same way? Is it really the most important thing for you and your company to be working on for that time? Pause, ask what are the expectations, set and align and define expectations that are realistic. And most importantly, you can only do all of this if you've taken the time to prepare for that meeting, where you can learn to assess the situation, diagnose like what does it take to win. And so take the time to think, prepare extensively as you meet with your boss. Remember, that meeting is a business meeting where it has to have clear agenda, clear priority, clear goal of either getting alignment or certain asks you may have, right? So take the time to prepare and make sure that you share that agenda up front and check with your boss if they have a better agenda topic. And then if your agenda doesn't get time in that 30-minute or 60-minute, you schedule a follow-up and make sure that your topic's covered. The third area is once you're aligned on the project, once you have clear goals, then you talk about what you need as to execute on that project. Make sure that first you understand clearly the effort that project's going to take. In no ambiguous terms, you need to know that the effort is estimated really well, that you can back that effort estimation with decisions that you've made with data, right? So that you can be confident about what is the effort and what is the absolute minimum number of resources that you need that you will not negotiate on. And let's say you don't get all of those things that you need, that you're asking, talk about what can you do with what you have. Talk about what you can do with what you have. That's really important. Let that sink in a little bit. Talk about like base case, with what I have, I can do this. If you get me more people, I can do this in this timeline, in this way, much faster. What are the trade-offs of adding more people now, not adding more? What is the cost and benefit to the business? So go in with options. Go in with options when you go in for asks. And make sure they know this is that meeting with this specific agenda. Let's say you go into a meeting and the leader is never expecting to ask for more people because let's say the business situation is so tough that they've told you several times that there is no room for adding more people. But you go in for that meeting and all of a sudden they're like, why are you asking me for more people when there is no more people? Give them options. Give them trade-offs as to, hey, this project can be done this way if we had more people. But with the base case, we can do it this way, and these are the cost benefits. So go in with options. And make sure you have data and done a lot of due diligence to back what you're asking for, especially around effort estimates. Don't sandbag. It's very, very important to have credibility in these numbers. The fourth area that you can meet with a senior leader is for reviewing progress, right? You have great project, you've set right goals with clear milestones, and you have resources to do that work. Now you want to be in the loop. You want to make sure that you review your progress with them regularly. Especially when you set goals in number two, you want to set milestones, right? So here you're reviewing those milestones. You're reviewing, did you deliver on what you said, right? So review your progress on milestones and clearly say what got done and what got missed. What were the learnings? If there's some learnings, you share those learnings. And share out what's coming next. What are the issues and risks that are upcoming? And what is your plans to mitigate? And what are your asks, if there are any new asks, right? Take the time to gather their feedback once you presented this. Check if everything is good. The upcoming milestones that are not yet done are still the right milestones. Gather their feedback and review what you're going to review next. Saying, hey, I'm going to now meet in 30 days and I'm going to review these set of milestones. Are these still the right set of milestones that we discussed in the goals and expectations meeting? Check, align, adapt, and also use this time to assess the mode of communication. Is this the right frequency? Are we meeting at the right frequency? Is it too much, too little? Is this the right level of detail? Is this the right mechanism to deliver? Some leaders really expect updates to be in dashboards. That's the most efficient way. Sometimes some leaders would say, hey, I'm not getting all the information in this dashboard. I really want to meet once a quarter and once a month based on this milestone dates. That's their preference. Take the responsibility to adapt based on your leaders' needs. Remember, they have several things going on with many other areas of projects they're working on. It's your responsibility as a subordinate to work with them and adapt to their needs. So check on all of these things. And finally, check what areas do you have the authority to make decisions and what areas you want your boss to be involved that you want. And I'll also check what is it that they want to be involved in. Certain times they may be like, hey, these are things you can decide without checking with me, but for these things, you got to check with me. Check all of that, right? So make sure that there is no misalignment. So this is a great alignment meeting where you review progress, learn, gather feedback, and make sure you're all aligned on the next steps and who makes what decisions and all of that. Yeah. Finally, the fifth one is your personal development meeting. You do this ideally in this order. You don't go with your personal development meeting agenda before the first 90 days. You first establish credibility, you have early wins, you set expectations, you meet those expectations. Ideally, you go far ahead and exceed those expectations, and have a meeting after your project's well on way to say, hey, maybe definitely in the first 90 days, one time, where you check and assess feedback around what's working well with all of the 4 meetings that happened earlier and progress on projects. Are you meeting expectations? Are you exceeding expectations in their eyes? Or are you not meeting expectations for what the business needs? Review progress for your personal development goal. Make sure that there's a specific meeting where you discuss just you, right? Your strengths, your areas of improvement, and also like special projects that you can take on that are related to your area that will help you grow and improvise your skills, especially in those areas of improvement. And it's important to have those projects closer to where you work or have those projects such that you will own them for long term. If you take projects that are one-off, it could be good, but make sure that it's time bound. But if it's in a clear way aligning to the next set of projects you will take on, that's the best way. Now you have a strategy which says, I'm going to take on these kind of projects more and more because it's coherent with my team. My team has a long-term vision. So that's the best way. Yeah. So review your personal growth and your development. Do a 360 at least once in 3 months or 6 months, because otherwise it's just too late. It's just too late. Take responsibility and have these meetings. So these are the top 5 topic areas Again, read chapter 4 of this book, Negotiating Success, because see, all of these meetings are business meetings. They have a specific goal. These are expensive meetings. If you meet with, let's say, a vice president or a senior director or even a director, it's really expensive for the company to have those two people talking. Make sure your company gets 10x the worth of the time that's spent there. So those are the 5 areas. I have still some tips, small tips that will help you in all of these 5 meetings. So let's go through them next. With senior leaders, these tips are very helpful that I've learned over time. And it's also mentioned, some parts of this is mentioned in the book, but a lot that I've added myself as well based on learnings. So first, be proactive. Don't wait for these meetings, these 5 meetings to be set up. Your boss may never get to you to say, hey, set this time up with me. You've got to be proactive. You set time on your boss's calendar or your boss's boss's calendar as well. Make sure you also have your skip level informed in most of these conversations that are critical, maybe 1 or 2 big items. And start with what your boss cares about, because see, your boss or your leader, your senior leader has more information than you do about how the business is doing, where are the best places to put people. Learn about what they care about, because that will be a proxy of where there is the biggest impact. Establish early wins. When you set expectations and goals, start with what your boss cares about. Get some of those early wins out of the way very quickly. That establishes credibility, that establishes positive momentum. Go with problems, but also with solutions, not just problems. If you just go with problems, it's a good thing to identify problems in a business setting, but it's also equally important to identify solutions and how can we start thinking of solutions. You might not have complete solutions, but you want to start having some. Keep your boss in the loop every time there's an issue. Give them an early heads up. And make sure, if you're asking for something big, that your boss has a buy-in, because your senior leader will first ask your boss saying, hey, are you in the loop? Do you agree with this? And you don't want your boss to be like, I don't know, I don't think so. Let me check with my subordinate. And then have some periods of these kind of chunks like this, typically 90 days a quarter. So having 3 chunks of 30-day each where you review progress is a good one. And for your personal team, you could have weekly goals and clear one big thing you want to get out of that week. Take 100% responsibility for your relationship building with your senior leader. Don't expect them to adapt to your needs or your style. Adapt to their needs and their style, because they have many more things going on. Have that empathy. Don't take too much of their time. If you take too much of their time and you don't get it in one time, there's a problem. You need to improve on your maturity. Regularly confirm and clarify. Adapt, right? Get feedback in those review meetings. Adapt and refine. Educate your boss's team. Remember, your boss or your boss's boss, especially your boss's boss, may not have full visibility of the projects that you're working on. So, and they'll have uneven channels of communication where they might hear very little about you. So make sure that they are in the loop, right? Make sure they're in the loop for critical wins, that you are in the front and you're educating them about what's working and how you're having impact. And ideally get their buy-in, especially one level up, not just your manager, but your manager's manager. Make sure that they are bought into the critical projects you're working on, that they're really important. Under promise, over deliver. Don't sandbag too much, because otherwise you lose credibility, right? So, but this is also equally important. To build credibility, you want to deliver on plan. Only then can you establish credibility, and only then can other people depend on your plan. Clearly ask what you need. Make sure that once you hit success, that it aligns with your strategy as to what's the next step. Ask for your leader to define that if you can't define it, but ideally you define it. Give them options. Learn about untouchable projects. These are projects that are sacred, that you don't have any insights about. If you define, if you learn from your boss, some history, context, or certain areas that are super important that you don't want to touch and change, then it's good, because you can learn. And back your decisions with data. Negotiate hard. Once you have a hard line, give options and trade-offs, but negotiate hard. Invest in face-to-face times. I know there's a virtual world now, especially with computer science areas, where most of the people in internet industry working from home. It's super critical to invest at least some time face-to-face. I've seen several meetings where people have outsized impact when they're face-to-face one-on-one versus only virtual. So some frequency, I think there's something here around meeting people in person, about that 3D. I think it's super important aspect in trust, I feel, where a lot more gets done also, I feel, if you know someone and have met them once or twice a quarter or 6 months. I think it's helpful. Finally, this is the most important. Don't meet with your boss or your boss's boss if you don't have a clear agenda that you've not sent them a pre-read on. Ideally, have a document that's shared between the two of you. Both of you can contribute agenda and clear goal. If not, cancel that meeting. Simple. Don't waste your boss's time. Cancel that meeting until you have a clear agenda, ideally in those 5 topics that we discussed earlier in this video. Cancel that meeting. You will be happy that you didn't waste their time, that you didn't land up with something totally opposite. Instead of negotiating your success, you negotiated and built an impression of failure because you just wasted their time, right? So these were some of the tips and 5 topic areas from chapter 4 of this book, The First 90 Days. Thank you.